What's up, folks? Welcome back to That GD Show, which is for Genevieve and Dave and nothing else. Eve was framed. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm so excited to be seeing you guys' faces and hanging out and chatting.
Yeah, you girls were fangirling backstage, and I said, okay, you can do that on the camera. Let's go, let's go.
We haven't seen each other since we were making a pillow fort together at the beach.
Oh my
I
God.
know.
That's right. Whose idea was the pillow fort? Was that you, Eve?
I don't remember. It was definitely a mutual, like, we both were like, this is happening right now, and neither of us were kidding.
Yeah. I feel like we might have been like touched by the Holy Spirit because we both had this epiphany at the same time when we saw the layout of the furniture and all the pillows
We
and
got
the blankets.
this
Were
massive beach house last year.
Build it and they will come.
I turn around and the living room has been turned into this fort pillow sheet thing, and I said, "What are these girls for?" And Alice was in there, and you guys were just having the best time. It was just so cool. I just thought, "Oh, I love really that."
Fun. It was a fun memory.
Yeah, that's what it's about, is the moments. Hey, yes. Greg Markowski, want to say hello. Thank you for your super chat. Always. Thanks for having Eve was framed on. She's great. Yes, she is.
Oh, thanks.
Captain Dadpool says, hello, so excited to see Eve on here. And you've been on, but not as the guest. You did a co-host with Genevieve when I was gone, right?
I did. I took over for you.
You took over, and everyone said afterwards, why is Dave still on this show? Why didn't it just
shut up?
Genevieve and Eve, that GE show. Sponsored by GE. There's a thing. We should go with that. But yeah, and then you were on the Christmas panel. We had a Christmas panel where
that was super fun.
That was a lot of fun. Yeah, we might do that again this next year. That was a riot, actually, and informational too. So no, I've been thinking about having you on just as the Deconstruction Show. That's kind of what we're calling this, because that's the lane you drive in. That's your thing, man. That's your gig on TikTok and Instagram.
Even after saying, "Hey guys, I'm not part of the deconstruction community." Here I am.
But you are.
But I am. I need to just accept it.
I understand that that's kind of a loaded term, if you will.
Right.
Like atheist can be loaded. Any of the terms that we use to describe ourselves or what we do. But I think it is a term, and we'll talk more about that tonight, because I do want to unpack what that means in detail as I see it, and get you guys' thoughts on that, and maybe some of the callers. But it is a thing that is in the consciousness of the Christian world now, and with a lot of Christians calling it out, and one, I forget the pastor's name, calling it's the sexy thing now, kind of dismissing it.
He just had to step down.
Was that Matt Chandler or what? Yeah.
For sending sexy Instagram DMs to other
women,
apparently.
I guess he's deconstructing in his own way, huh?
Shocked, I tell you.
Really, truly shocking.
Yeah, I know. I've never heard of anything like that happening in the church.
Well,
this is where Jesus makes people better, right? No, we're not right. Oh God, the super chats are coming in. We haven't even done our intro welcome thing.
Will.
Hey, Will Judy, my brother, my cigar smoking friend. Superlative panel tonight. I must agree with you. Rock on, rock stars. Thank you for that super chat. Gary Booker, my friend.
Love you, Gary.
Hey,
Thank you, Gary. Good to see you. And Greg Markowski, always our faithful, almost always the first super chatter. He's just so faithful and supportive. So anyway, speaking of support, like and subscribe. I think I'm contractually obligated to say that on every show. I think YouTube will kick you off if you don't. And it is a call-in show. We do have a call coming in the screening room. But tell us how to call in, Genevieve, and why they should.
You should, because we don't bite. It's a lot of fun. And we've got an amazing guest, and it's rare that you're going to be able to catch her like this, because I've seen your DMs. They're insane. So don't even
They
try.
are.
Just kidding. But you can call us, and the number is 217-375-9933.
That's it. Thank you. And please do. I've reached out on my platforms and encouraged people, if you've been through, and we're calling it deconstruction, we're going to unpack that term a little bit more, but deconverting, changing your belief system, moving out of Christianity into more of a secular worldview. Right. If that is your journey, if you are on any part of that spectrum or have done that in the past, we want to hear from you. We want to talk to you. Some of the calls may just be brief. I want to, some of the things I want to ask people is, what got you started on that journey? Why did you begin to think differently from the tribe you were in? Yeah. And what was the catalyst? What initiated that? And then how did it go? And what part of the journey are you on? Where are you in the process? How do you identify yourself now? Did you land at agnostic, atheist, humanist, all of the above? So that's just the kind of things we want to talk. Archradish, I just love
Chad. Thank you.
Archradish, I love that handle. $10 super chat. Warning: YouTube awesomeness overload with all three of you. This site may implode from awesome, but what a way to go!
Gosh. That's my dear friend Chad.
Oh, Chad, thank you. That's awesome. What a great comment. Yeah, if you suddenly see the show go off and it ceases, it's not the rapture.
It was just too much.
It's just that the world could not handle the three of us.
It started with Sneezing Panda. It ends with us.
So
it's been a good road, YouTube.
You guys will notice, if I mentioned it last week, I'm not doing this anymore. And the reason is because my awesome friends, Kyle and Tina Marie, was noticing on my shows that I'm always having to adjust my glasses because they're always slipping. And so they sent me these little things that clip on the back of it, and it holds it in place. And I was talking, and Genevieve, you are such a softie. I was talking about that last week, and how because they literally got here in the mail the last week before the show, a couple hours. And so I put them on, and I thought, oh my God, this is going to change my life. Aww. And Genevieve just starts crying, and it's because I
can't help it.
It's
that's so sweet.
Tell me, why is that? What about that touched you, Genevieve?
I think it's one of those things that it's so simple. It's not, it's not like sexy deconstruction. It's not like it's the sexiest gift. It just keeps your glasses in place. But when you struggle with something like that, I mean, that means the world. It's like when I see shirts that, like, button-up shirts that have magnets instead for people who don't have the dexterity. Like when I see somebody's face light up because they can just put on a shirt or tie their shoes, like, it's those things that just, I start crying. It touches,
it's the thoughtfulness. I do too, Genevieve. That's why you're so special.
You're gonna make me cry again.
That's my goal. My goal every week is to make Genevieve cry. I haven't succeeded. So these are them.
That's so cool.
It's just a simple little thing. But it was the thoughtfulness. It was just somebody looking and watching a show and thinking, you know what? And it was Kyle, Tina's son, that said, I think the thing I've got could help Dave. And just that thoughtfulness. We were at a conference in Nashville, and some people came that are followers of ours and supporters. I hate the word followers, fans. I don't know what to call people.
Your cult members?
A cult follower, yes. Brought me, this guy had made... Jason had made with his 3D printer, had made some plastic pen grip holders. And we're sitting there on the deck before the conference, and he brought those up to me, and it was just the time and the trouble he'd gone to try to create something to make my life better. That's what touches you, right, Genevieve? It's just that heart in people to want to do something, and it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful.
The humanity of it.
Exactly. And as this show says, we don't need a God to be good humans. We don't need a God to be good people. Courageous says we're all going as sexy deconstructionists for Halloween this year, right? That's exactly right. Yeah, I think it is actually. But we want to talk tonight. Oh, by the way, the rest of the I've just gotten disclaimer. We're going on about 2 hours sleep. Jet lag from returning from Hawaii. We got him this afternoon.
You're crazy.
Tried to grab a couple hours of sleep and be somewhat coherent. So as Captain Dadpool says, hey Captain, don't forget to like the smash the like button. He meant to say. Do like and subscribe. If you're so inclined, you love what we do and you want to see us do more, we'd love to have your support on Patreon. That would be great. But thank you for tuning in. We just have such a great group here that's always there and always supportive. A couple of announcements. I will be, speaking of Nashville at NanoCon, going to be traveling a couple of places. If you are near these places, we would love to see you. I always like to put that out. First of all, we're going to be in Cincinnati. It's actually Northern Kentucky, Covington, but it's called the Tri-State Freethinkers Group. And I'm speaking there on Wednesday, the 12th of this month. So a week from this Wednesday. If you're near there, it's basically Cincinnati. We'd love to see you. You could hit me up with an email. We can get you the details on that. Tri-State Freethinkers is a group. You could look them up online. I spoke there a few years ago, but they're having me back to speak and probably do some reading from the book. And then the next night, we're going to go to Nashville. I'm going to do a book reading and a Q&A at a coffee shop, and Secular Rarity kind of put this together. So thank you for that, Secular. We're going to be reading. It's a coffee shop that kind of encourages conversations between Christians and non-believers, Christians and seculars. So they've done some things like that before. So
I'll be there.
Yes, it was framed as going to be there. So we're going to kind of make a meetup. We're going to do, she's going to kind of post a meetup there. Hey, Joe, super sticker, $1.99. Thank you for your support, brother. So you're going to kind of make a meetup with your followers.
I'll be there, and everyone else should come hang out too. We'll all bring our cult members.
So we're going to be, doing it. And so I talked to the owners, and they're actually believers. And so, but he says, I really encourage open conversation and being respectful of other views and things like that. So he said, as long as you can do that and keep it PG-13, because apparently he's got online and seen that I'm not always PG-13. And so I said, yes, I'll try to clean up my act. But they encourage open conversations. And so I'm going to read a few sections from the book, and then do some Q&A, and hopefully we'll have some vibrant dialogue. I really encourage that. Yeah. Beautiful sunny day in Australia. I'm not going to try to do my Australia accent. I almost went there, but I realized that could go south. That could go really badly. But all the love and happiness shining through the screen from you all is even brighter.
Oh, that's sweet.
Well, thank you for that.
Genevieve's going to cry again.
Okay, it's not that easy to make me cry, but that was very sweet. I'm very touched.
Well, we do love each other. We're like family here. I just feel like you girls are my family. I love you guys so much.
That's my bestie, who's been my best friend since I was like 13 years old. We deconstructed and all of that together.
Jessica Jones, call us tonight, Jessica. We'd love to hear from you if you're so inclined.
That would be wild if she did.
Yes. That number once again, Genevieve,
is 217-375-9933.
Yes. So please And with the call, what we're not wanting to, interview you, your life story, just some question. Thank you, by the way, Jessica, for that super chat. That's very kind, and really glad to have you on the show tonight. But it's really more about just some simple, I would love to talk to, half a dozen people tonight, and just, what was your journey like? What did it be, to compare notes and see what everyone's journey is like, because they're all different, similar but different. There's a lot of common themes.
And I don't get to hear, like you said, my DMs are so insane that I can't keep up with it. And I don't get to hear a lot of people's stories. I mean, I read my comments, but it's really cool to hear. I like to know I'm not alone too.
Yeah.
I know I share a lot, but I like to hear stuff back. So
yeah, and it does help other people to know they're not alone. That's why we do these things.
Yeah.
So that people tuning in from Podunkville, Idaho, who doesn't know anyone in their real world that can identify with them, it helps them know, wow, I'm really not the only one that this has happened to.
Yeah.
And that's hugely important. I know you hear that all the time, right, Eve?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's the number one thing I have is people that are so alone in their community. They've lost everything, or they're contemplating the risk of losing everything. And they have this thought, like, those of us that are right now on TikTok and Instagram, we're in it. We're in the middle of it. We feel surrounded by people. But a lot of people don't know that this little corner of the internet, nonetheless, real life people exists. And so it really helps just to hear like that somebody else has had that thought before. I mean, it makes you feel less crazy. And I think at the end of the day, that's what we all want to feel is not necessarily normal, but we want to feel understood. So it helps to hear from other people. That's
a great term. Normal is really can be a pejorative term. Sorry.
Yeah.
In other words, kind of like what's normal.
Right.
And if I say I'm normal, then I'm casting down on everyone that's different from me,
right,
which is what we do. But to say to be understood and accepted is the other thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's so much rejection that comes with this deconstruction journey, and misunderstanding is a big thing too.
Yeah. And high control religion is about making you feel like you have this community and like you are accepted and all these things, even though you're not. You're usually having to deny everything that makes you you in order to become like the rest of this group.
Mm-hmm.
But losing that is a really, really lonely feeling. When you used to fit in, you used to always have something in common with a large group of people. That's a big loss.
It is. I do want to, let's see, we've got, the calls are starting to come in. So we want to get to those, and we may go quick on the calls. In other words, not spend a whole lot of time on each caller. So if we do that with
when Dave starts looking at you guys funny, it means you need to go.
Yeah, it's time to go. I do want to do the trivia question. So we do the I meant to drop that in a minute ago, and sometimes I just forget altogether. But people like playing the trivia game around my book. So
I love it.
And Genevieve, by the way, we got some mugs in today when we got home, and I've got one with your name on it. And I've got one for our friend who lives here, Nicole, that won last week. So I just thought, you know what, we'll just have them sent here, and I'll have someone in stock, so to speak. Perfect. So from my memoir, the book, Childish Things, if you haven't read it, it's on Amazon. And also I always like to announce, because we got 2 new requests today for signed copies. So if you do want a signed copy, we do that. So you just email me at daveoutloud@gmail.com, and we'll take care of that for you. But here's the question for tonight, and we'll move on. I don't want to belabor it. So since this is the deconstruction show, in my deconstruction process, there's a point when Genevieve, you're so funny. She does love it so much. She's already won. You can't win again, by the way. That's the other thing. If you've won once, you can't win again. Sorry. Mm-hmm. We want to give everyone a chance.
And if you do not live in the continental North America, basically U.S., Canada, Mexico, you can win, but you just won't get anything because shipping is astronomical.
Yeah, but you'll know you're a winner. And you can look in the mirror every morning and say, I'm a winner.
Mm-hmm. Put it on your sticky note.
People like me. But it's just that our swag company doesn't ship to those places. Those are the disqualifiers. But it's a GD show mug. Do you have that picture, Ethan? Sometimes he's able to grab it real quick. But it's a really cool mug, and And so it's got the GD Show logo. There he is.
Look at that.
Look at that beauty. So here's the question. I've belabored this enough. During my deconstruction process, there was a point in time when I just began to, with a yellow pad, begin to write down things, passages from the Bible. Now, hopefully you've read this and remember it, but a lot of people will begin to just guess, and that's okay too. If you get it, the first one to get the correct answer in the chat wins the mug. And so we'll just go with that. But what part of the Bible did I begin to write things down to compare what the Bible was actually saying for the first time in my life? And there's two-part question. What part of the Bible and then what particular book did I finish with and was so disgusted with what I read that I threw the pen across the room and hit the wall? What book of the Bible was I reading when I did that? And what part of the Bible, which is a specific part? So you got to get both, okay? So there you go. First one wins. Let's, Eva, I do want to unpack your story a bit in detail tonight, but I do want to do that in conjunction with taking calls, okay? You guys good with that?
Let's
Genevieve, I guess we should go with, do you have the callers up, Jen?
I do.
Ben has been here a few minutes.
Yep. We've got Ben here, him from Alabama, who wishes to share his deconstruction story. He was a former member of the Church of Christ.
Hey, Ben, you're on with Genevieve and Eve. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good. I didn't realize I was first in line, so it's an honor.
Yeah, well, thank you for calling.
But yeah, for sure. I just want to thank all of y'all. First of all, y'all kind of helped me out a lot with putting my thoughts into words. It's just interesting because I had seen Eve on TikTok before my deconversion, and I thought her username was pretty disrespectful. and now I'm thinking like,
now you're thinking it's the best name ever, right?
You're right. Eve was a total setup. The Garden of Eden was just a total setup. And it's just funny how like I've come full circle. So, and I've seen Dave and Genevieve on the Atheist Experience during my deconversion. So Eve was my I guess first exposure that she kind of first exposed me to that kind of thinking. I wouldn't say that that's really what got me questioning. I'll get into that.
Just got you offended.
Thank y'all first of all. But so some Mormons came to my door in March or April earlier this year. And I had always known, like I had always known what I believed. I had known what other sects of Christianity, if you include Mormons in Christianity, fine. Some don't, but I knew what Mormons believed too. I knew some of the stories about Joseph Smith. What I didn't realize was that their argument to back up Joseph Smith's testimony was that there was a great persecution of Joseph Smith and his followers, and that their reasoning was, would they ruin their life for something that was a lie? And then and I had met with these two missionaries a couple times, and I know my Bible stuff pretty well, and so like I was just like arguing, like debating with them on how it didn't make sense. And I got to thinking like, wait, so I'm just supposed to believe this stuff because people 150 years ago chose to ruin their life over it? But then I thought, oh my goodness, that is the same argument that we use to back up the Jesus resurrection, the martyrdom of the apostles.
They wouldn't go. They wouldn't kill. And I thought, they wouldn't go to die. They wouldn't die for nothing. They wouldn't die for a lie. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, who would die for a lie? And then I got to thinking about it. You know, people actually do die for lies.
Yep.
That happens. And like, I mean, okay, so I had some examples. The 1978 mass suicide of the members of the People's Temple. So that's where the phrase "drinking the Kool-Aid" comes from. There was like a mass suicide of this group called Heaven's Gate. Also 9/11. a lot of Christians believe Islam to be false.
Jim Jones,
that
they had
was
Kool-Aid
done.
there. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, like, I thought, people do die for lies. And so I realized I need better answers for what I believe. And then, but I finally got to the point where I had to approach it as a non-believer, and I couldn't climb back up to where I was.
Yeah.
As much as I hate to say it, and well, I don't hate to say it now, actually, but I did hate to say it. And it wasn't really fun telling my family. But
so let me point you to that for a minute, just to keep things flowing. That this is all fairly recent for you. Then you said March or April of this year.
Yeah, I fully deconverted in July.
So that's when you came to.
I quit going to church.
So I want to point to that
first time. Yeah, sorry, we keep interrupting each other.
I'm sorry. But I wanted to make a couple of points tonight, just for our viewers and for clarity.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important to understand these things because I like when you said that phrase, and I've thought this through my own life. I fully deconstructed in July. What I take that to mean for me, and I wanted to get your take on this too, Ben, and maybe you too, Eve.
Yeah.
But for me, it wasn't like there was a day when I woke up and said, "Oh, I'm going to be an atheist now." But there was a point. Now I can point back to the day I was born again, because I was 18 years old. It was a certain day. I wasn't, most people can point to that sinner's prayer conversion experience. Even if you're a child, there's a time when you pray the prayer and you're baptized or whatever, depending on what vein of faith you're in. But the deconstruction journey is a bit different. It's a process over time, oftentimes months and even years of questioning and asking and exploring. But there does come a moment, I think, for most of us, when the light comes on and you go, wait a minute, I don't believe this. I can't embrace this anymore. So to me, it's like it's not a decision I made, it's a conclusion I came to. Is that how you would frame it for yourself, Ben?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not a decision. The way I put it is I did used to believe that belief was a choice.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of has to do with some of what that was an undertone of what you were saying. I didn't choose to become an atheist. I didn't aim to become anything.
Right.
Exactly.
It's more of it happened.
That's exactly right.
Ironically, because I was trying to find better answers for what I believed.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, you hear the phrase like reading the Bible is the best way to become an atheist. Like you said, I remember the day. It was January 27th. I was actually baptized twice so I'm from the Church of Christ, and baptism is essential. And with that, I got baptized like at 12 years old. And then when I was 17, I was like, I don't know that I knew what I was doing. So I got baptized.
I did the same thing.
I was baptized 3 times.
Yeah.
5 times here, guys. 5 times. It did not take.
It's just to cover your bases, it's a CYA kind of thing.
Cover your
butt kind of thing. But
just in case.
Mine was January 27th, 2012, I think. And and like you said, I can't really remember the day. It came around a weekend, and it was like, am I going to go worship this weekend? Like,
yeah,
I can't bring myself to do it. I'm not lying to people.
Yeah.
That's good.
I'm not just going to play this part just to be a part of a community.
Right.
So how did that go with your family? You said it didn't go over well with your family. Tell me what that's like now, and we will wrap this up. But we got 4 other calls in the queue, but I do want to hear some more.
I understand. Yeah.
How did it go with your family, and what are things like now, and in terms of with your family, and in terms of community of like-minded people? Because I see you're in Alabama. That can be a little difficult.
Right.
Very religious. It's the buckle of the Bible Belt. But I gave a direct call to each one of my direct family or immediate family members.
Mm-hmm.
My mom first. It really upset her. she said she couldn't stomach it, and she still can't talk about it with me. So it is what it is. My dad, he was just like, well, I'm sorry to hear that. And then I called my siblings. I debated my brother. He still thinks I'm doomed. And my sister realized, well, I pointed out a lot of flaws in my sister's reasoning, but it's all, everything's fine, I guess. It's just I don't go to church, and they don't really treat me any differently, thankfully.
Okay, that's good. So you
I'm
still have
very
relationship
fortunate
with them.
to have that. Yeah.
Yeah.
My mom thought when I on the call with my mom, she thought I was going to cut off contact with them.
Oh,
And I was
wow.
like, absolutely not, Mom. No, but that's like her biggest fear, is cutting off contact with her kids. But no, I mean, it's fine. Thankfully, like, I moved right as this was happening, so people at my home church aren't expecting me there anyways. And I was just getting into a new church here in this new town, so like I wasn't in too deep.
So you don't have to deal with a lot of their questions, right?
Right. Nobody's like, where's Ben? It's they're not expecting me there. So it's kind of a win-win. It's just funny. It's like it had a divine, it's just like very coincidental that this is all like happening so smoothly. It
must be a God thing.
It's funny.
Yeah.
It's like divine providence.
It's the only answer. It's the only answer.
Divine providence.
Well, I'm glad things are going well with you, and I'm glad you woke up. I'm really glad that it's not difficult, because I know I know that's what you deal with a lot, Eve, is people deconstructing who are having difficult family situations, and how do I process this? And so it's really good to hear sometimes when it it does go smoothly, even though if they don't agree with you, they can still embrace you and be kind to you and that sort of thing. And I'm really glad to hear that, Ben.
Yeah, I want to hear more of that in general. Thanks so much, Ben.
Thanks for calling, brother.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Thank you for your time. All right.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Yeah, that was a fast timeline.
Yeah, it really was.
But mine was like that. Mine was like an overnight. Like, I can point to the exact day when I stopped believing.
Before we get to another call, take us through. I'm going to do bits of your story then between calls. That would work well. So from the time you asked your first question, so to speak, in other words, is this adding up?
Right.
To the time you came to the place where you said, it's not adding up. How long was that?
I was asking questions my entire life, because I actually can't pinpoint the day I was saved. I couldn't tell you that.
Oh, okay.
I got saved multiple times. I was a pastor's kid, so I never wanted to miss out on an altar call. I always wanted to make sure. I was terrified of going to hell. And I was, my friends would get baptized, so I'd be like, can I get baptized that weekend too? That was, I was really in it. But I was constantly asking questions. I mean, I remember being up late at night at 4 or 5 years old, crying, asking my dad, how can we stay alive for forever in heaven?
Really?
Like, that's a long time. I was so anxious about it. I was like, I don't like doing anything for more than 30 minutes. How am I going to stay alive forever? And I hate worship services. So how am I going to worship God forever? And I just had so much anxiety.
And then you became a worship leader. So what's the irony there?
Because I was like, at least I can do something during worship and like be up on stage. But so I always had questions, and then I was always met with answers that would satisfy me just enough to shut me up. And I kind of think that's what the church does. Gives you just enough. It keeps you ignorant enough that you don't have things to say back, and it keeps you interested enough that you don't care, and so you just stick with it. And so I was a very devout believer for 25 years. And I reached a point where I wanted to get closer to God. And I, decided to go to ministry school. I started reading my Bible. Not reading. I had always been reading my Bible. I started studying my Bible. And through that, long story short, reached a point where I woke up the next morning. I was supposed to lead worship that day at this large school of ministry, Bethel in California. And I was like, hold on. I don't think there's a God. Like, I don't think there's a God at all. Nonetheless, the God that I've been taught to believe in, like, I think there is no God. And I've been like screaming at this God for the last couple of months, and there's been nothing. And so I deconstructed after that. I deconverted first, and I left. I packed a suitcase. I got a one-way flight and I never went back. But I had to deconstruct from my beliefs after that. And I think for some people it's more of a slow burn, like you were saying, like where you deconstruct and then you're a progressive Christian and then you're this, which I had reached a point of that a little bit. I was a progressive Christian, but it was a pretty overnight thing for me.
Mm-hmm. That mine was different. In fact, that's a good way to put it, because my deconstruction process was before the deconverting. I was maintaining identity as a Christian through this process of and deconstruction to me is, I think, an interesting term, because I look at it like a house. When we had a house fire years ago, after the fire, we had to basically deconstruct the house. You have to take it down to the studs, to the foundation, to see what's still there that you can rebuild upon. So I look at our faith that way, our belief system that way. And what I started to do was to take the pieces of the house apart to see what was foundationally strong enough to build upon. Was there anything here that I could build a faith system or a belief system upon? Mm-hmm. And so that was a process of taking this part out, and that, hell, the concept of hell was an early rafter that I could throw away.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And so
it's a good one to get rid of quickly.
Yeah, that was easy. That was an easy one. But that was the process. That's why I like that term, is because it kind of illustrates a process in a methodical process. Whereas coming to faith for most people is not a methodical process. It's an adoption of other people's ideas. It's whether you're indoctrinated like you were, Eve, as a child, or like I was as a teenager, you are just assuming someone else's thought processes. You're not, I dare say, less than 0.5% of Christians have gone through a process of examining multiple faith ideas, multiple belief systems, multiple religions comparatively, and come to a decision of, well, this one makes the most sense of all of them.
Yeah.
We hardly ever do that. We just adopt what people around us have. And so when we're coming out of that, it's kind of a new idea. It's a new way of looking at things. My thought was, I'm going to figure this out for myself, although I've never done it for 3.5 decades, but I'm going to do it now. And I'm going to see what this faith is that I've believed all these years. And that was my process. It took me about 1.5 years.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. And then, then at the end of it, it was like, oh, I don't believe it. I am not a Christian anymore. I must be an atheist. So that's it. Now what? That's just how I process things.
There's a comment is it okay if I address a comment?
Oh, sure.
So someone said, I'm sad I don't have a compelling story. I was a default Christian until I learned evolution on YouTube, thanks to Aaron Ra. But I think that is a very compelling story.
Yes, you're smarter than the rest of us.
Right. You were defaulted
like
into
Genevieve.
something, and you trusted yourself enough, and you learned new information, and then you allowed that to change the course of how you believe. And I think that is so compelling. And I think the idea that we have to have these cool stories comes from evangelicalism, this idea that we have to have a testimony, that inspires others. But what's more inspiring than to say, hey, go check out these YouTube videos. I used to believe one way, and I learned more information, and now I think differently. So I think that's a really
your
great
story, Genevieve.
I think that's amazing, except for, I got to skip all of it. There was no, baby in bathwater to throw it out. I was never baptized. I was raised with atheists amongst atheists. And so it was kind of just, you just learn how the world works. And then suddenly when somebody tells you, oh, wait, you don't believe in Jesus? Like, what about heaven? You're like, what are you talking about? Like, you think Adam and Eve, like, it's just, that's a totally different thing. But I just want to, I love that you said that, Eve. And something that I kind of want to add on to with that is that, for that commenter, that kind of reminds me of like romantic comedies, like rom-coms. I feel like in talking to so many people who have deconstructed, it does feel like at the end of it, there's this like feeling of kicking yourself for either like believing for so
Yeah.
long and all of that
Right.
time that you wasted going to church and doing all of these things. And
Yeah.
another layer of that, I think, is the first time you feel that cognitive dissonance, and instead of just saying, oh, hey, R and Ron made a really good point, I believe different now, there's this
Right.
whole like battle of finding ways to twist and justify to make what you believe make sense.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is sort of like the rom-com in this situation. It's like,
Yeah.
if you could just see things as clearly as you did and have those parts of your brain just communicate, like, I think it's beautiful that there's no plot. Like, there shouldn't be. It can be
Right.
very frustrating if it is this long, winding journey,
Yeah.
and that's how it is. But yeah, don't belittle yourself. I think that's
That's
amazing.
exactly well said, Genevieve and Eve. You guys nailed it. Asexual Atheist, thank you for your super chat. Dave, Genevieve, Guest, and Mods Rock. And then Anton Gomez. Hey, friend. Mexican.
Oh, wow.
Thank you for your super chat. I was never a theist, and my deconstruction from being a conspiracy theorist was very, very slow. I really can't point to one spot. I'm glad to be more skeptical. We're glad you're skeptical too, man. Thank you for being here. We have got calls lighting up the screen, so I want to get over. Let's talk to Jenny. Hey, Jenny, how you doing?
Hi.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi, good. Hi.
Good. Thank you for calling. She, her from California. Your process of deconstructing prayer as the last bit. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So basically, I was working at a church at the time. I just left my job at the church this last January. And I had started delving more into the Bible, just kind of the story about, like, once you really start studying. So I was exploring various scriptures and whatnot, and it started with the scriptures having to do with LGBTQ, going from that, and then started, as you mentioned, like tearing down a house bit by bit. And it just kind of kept going until finally even the gospel message that we are, bad innately and we need a savior and all these things. So it just kind of kept going. And then the final, you guys are talking about kind of, was there a moment in time? And there was for me, and it was regarding prayer, because that was the relationship. The Bible and whatnot was more like the knowledge. But I'm sorry, I'm going to get emotional.
That's quite all right. That's quite all right. It's an emotional thing.
Prayer was a relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
And so during the pandemic, my daughter, she went through a horrible time, and her mental health really started deteriorating. She's a teenager, and she had to spend her whole sophomore year at home. And so it just kept getting worse and worse. And so I was praying, as you can imagine, just every day. And it was just devastating to have it not getting better. And I feel like what was happening is just, just finding myself crying and screaming and begging for it to end, or for her to, just for things to change. The day things shifted for me was I was driving in my car, and, I was off in a place where I would pray. I was alone, and, just was able to focus and, do that. So I was driving in my car, and I was going to, kind of start down my path of prayer and asking for things to be different and all these things. And I stopped short, and just out of pure exhaustion, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, I just said, I give up. I give up. And what I meant was I can no longer just like keep reaching and hoping and trying to grasp at something to change the present. And I just thought, to myself that this idea that, some all-knowing being, all-capable being, all-loving being wasn't changing what was happening and allowing this to happen. Like, either that being is a terrible, horrible thing, or what I've been taught is all wrong. And in that moment, I just I felt something die as much as I felt something grow at the same time. It
Wow,
was the most
that's
bizarre
beautifully put.
feeling. It was, it was a beautiful moment and of just release. And so I started just, allowing myself to kind of breathe into that. And basically I haven't prayed since. And so after that moment, started really deconstructing like what prayer was for me. And when I have to boil it all down, I do feel like in Christianity, and probably other people have different dynamics, but what I really started noticing was that there was kind of this overall dissatisfaction with the present. And that would manifest in like prayer requests or whatnot. If you pray corporately with other people and you kind of go around and say your prayer requests and this and that, what I was just noticing in myself, and then when I would be with others, is just, kind of a laundry list about, please help me with this, please help me with that, please make this different or that different. And I just started recognizing, what is this dynamic I had with this creator, and just this way of thinking that if you pray, something will happen, and the mental gymnastics of like, well, why isn't it happening? And because of this, all of that. So it just, nothing was making sense anymore. And so I thought, the journey then became, rather than wishing and praying and hoping that things would change with my daughter, the journey became about acceptance of what was happening and stopping running from it, And so that became then the process of, okay, let me let this in and stop fighting it. And it doesn't mean, acceptance doesn't mean I liked it or I was like okay with it, but it was an embracing of the present moment. And just recognizing how I never did that and I never appreciated the present. And so I feel like, Eve, I really appreciate your content, by the way, but you mentioned on your story that, talking about kind of what we lost, but talking about what we've gained through our deconstruction process. And I do feel like I've gained, an appreciation for this life, that I never had, when I was a Christian, and
which is everything.
Recognizing that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying that's everything, right? Being able to have that appreciation.
Yeah, for sure. And so just recognizing, that it even went from a dissatisfaction with my personal life and present moment, but a dissatisfaction with, this life in general, meaning, such a focus on the afterlife, and not on really appreciating this life. And so I feel like I've really gained that. Also, part of my process has been healing through my art. About a year ago, I started doing these self-portrait collages, and so it's been kind of like a diary and a chronicle of my journey through deconstruction. So that's been really, really healing, and I'm really grateful for that process as well.
I love that. That is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing all of that with us. The self-awareness is amazing.
Everything.
You clearly are an artist.
Well, I can tell there's a lot of emotion involved with it, with your journey, Jenny, and I'm really, glad that you shared that with us. It's still fairly new. You said earlier this year, correct? If I heard that right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I left my job earlier this year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And how are things now? Do you feel like you've gotten, as time has passed in these months, do you feel like you've gotten more clarity and you've settled, and it's like Eve said, your self-awareness clearly is there. So how do you feel like you are now? I mean, is it kind of a settled thing, or is there still an emotional struggle?
Regarding kind of my belief, my system of belief, I'm definitely settled in the fact that I don't know, nothing is certain, and I have comfort in that. And so that's lovely, because kind of that space in my heart and mind that would hold fear and maybe, certainty or wanting to control now is a blank space that I am able to just let live and breathe without trying to fill with something to explain everything. And I've heard other people talk about that, about that, just that peace in the uncertainty, and I don't need to land anywhere.
Yeah.
So
That's
I
awesome.
feel like, as things come up with life, it's the practice to just be still, to let myself feel everything I am feeling, and then kind of make the choices with the wisdom, that has shaped me, and then kind of let the rest be what it will be. So that's kind of my mantra these days. And as far as, my daughter, she's doing fantastic. She's going to go to college this year. She's going to graduate in June. And so kind of the next phase of my life is starting kind of with my husband and I, without her here. She's our only daughter. And so this artwork has been super helpful because, connecting to my passion, kind of finding something that's just for me, and being able to reflect my process in this visual way has been really, really cool. So I'm finding a lot of
That's
healing.
awesome.
And oh, by the way, our whole family deconstructed together. So my husband and I and our daughter.
That is
I-
beautiful.
We're hearing some great success stories tonight. That's
Yeah.
very encouraging. It really
Yeah.
warms my heart.
Yeah.
It really warms my heart. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
you've just made us all smile, Jenny.
Yeah,
and
thank you for that.
it's just beautiful story. Thank you for your transparency and for your honesty. And I just tell people all the time that I know that deconstructing is hard, because you have to admit you've been wrong about something, and that
Really
takes
wrong.
Yeah.
that takes courage.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to say I'm proud of you, because not everyone has the
Oh,
courage to do what
okay.
you've done.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and appreciate you guys and this conversation, and just, it's really been helpful. I've really never talked about this publicly.
Well, we're so glad you did here. Thank you for
Yes.
calling, Jenny.
Sending you big hugs.
Big
Yeah.
hugs.
Oh,
Amazing.
thank you so much.
Much love.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Oh, all right.
Oh my gosh. Just makes me smile so big.
We all have
I was so glad there was a happy ending.
I know, everybody's tearing up and smiling at the same time.
I
Oh, what a sweetheart.
yeah, I think too, conversations that I've had with friends of mine who are still believers, and when people love talking about the testimony. They've seen people's lives changed by Jesus, and that's how they know that he's
Right.
real. And I remember telling them about, different trials and tribulations that I have gone through myself, and how, I got through that with my own strength and fortitude, and my community and my family,
Right.
and my friends. There was no God to thank. And when my friends had responded that, they would be nothing without God, they would be nothing without this relationship, like all of their strength is from them, I can understand how, like, losing that, it is like the worst breakup in the
Right.
universe, like literally. Realizing that you've been abandoned by somebody who isn't there. But I do hope that on the flip side of that, it is really empowering to think back to all of those moments when you prayed for strength and you found it. Like, that wasn't magic. That was you.
That was you. Yep.
Yeah.
That's so good.
In every other realm of life, we would be advised to get out of a relationship wherein one person
Right.
never communicated with you and stayed locked in their room and told you that you couldn't do anything without them, and they love you more than anyone else, and yet they would never respond to you. That is an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
And anyone in their right mind would tell you to flee that thing immediately, except when that other thing is God and
Yep.
Jesus.
Or if it's your husband and you're a member of church.
Stay with
I
that.
experienced both.
Oh, okay. We've got to get to these
Yeah.
callers.
Yes.
Ironclad Alibi, he, him in Virginia. Hello.
Hello, Dave, Genevieve, and Eve.
How are you tonight? Thanks for calling in. You say your deconstruction began when you were encouraged to witness.
Right.
Talk about
I'm 70.
that.
Okay, I'm 74 now.
Okay.
But back when I was in my early 20s, and I was going, I think it was a Baptist church at the time, and they kept going on and on about go out and witness for Christ, witness for Christ. And I had a question. I said, then what? What happens after I witness for Christ? And the answer was, you go to the next person and just keep on doing it. And that just seemed kind of pointless to me. And I just filed that away in the back of my head.
How old were you when that was happening?
Early 20s, 23,
Okay.
24, somewhere around there. And
what
about 10 years later, I read a book called Holy Blood, Holy Grail.
Huh.
And the sequel books to that. I realized that I had been lied to a lot about what the church was and its history. Plus, I'm an amateur student of history, so I know a lot of the sins the church committed over the years. And I tried talking to my father about that. This was in the early 80s.
Right.
And I was in my early 30s. And his only answer was, just go to church, everything will be okay.
Oh, yeah.
And I went to church off and on over the next few years. The last mainline church I went to was in the late 80s, Episcopal Church. In the 90s, my wife got involved with some spiritualist churches, and we went there a few times. And I retired in 2003. Since then, we really haven't been involved in any churches. But I started listening to the Atheist call-in shows about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And listening to everybody and listening to the questions and the way people answered, I realized I had been an atheist for some time.
You just didn't know it.
I just didn't know it, didn't realize it. It just made me think about it. And I realized that, I had just evolved from being a believer into being an atheist. There's no one particular time or event that I say, whoop, clicked like a light switch, which is evolution. And I'll compare it to the way I've lost weight. I've lost 90 pounds.
Wow.
I was up to almost 300 pounds.
Good for you.
I've lost a third of my weight, and it's taken me a third of my life to do that. So it's not like it came off overnight. It's not like my beliefs changed overnight. They just evolved until I am where I am now.
Mm-hmm.
Quite the difference from everyone else's story, it seems like.
Well, but it's good. That's why I wanted to do a show like this.
Yeah, we want to hear all the different
because there are so many different versions of this. We've had some interesting calls already, and then yours where everything seems to be, working well. We know the horror stories that we've heard from people, and Eve, especially you with your activism on TikTok and Instagram and like Genevieve said, I've seen you communicate with your DMs, and it's just you spend a lot of time doing that because you care about them. And there are some really, really bad stories of family separations and abuse and all kinds of things going on simply because people changed what they were believing.
Which is not even a choice.
It's right. It's just something that happened to them. And so what you're saying, Ironclad, is a nice story. You evolved your processes over time, and it became a non-factor. God became a non-factor to you, and you didn't even realize until you watched some shows. Oh, wow, I'm an atheist. Okay, cool. And it was just no big deal. But we know the stories of people who just are completely alienated from their community because of that identification.
Mm-hmm. And Ironclad, something that I especially love about your story is that it really took, watching these call-in shows for you to sort of put a name to what has already happened. And, it reminds me of what we were saying before about how the word deconstruction is getting all of this hoopla because it's the big scary thing to the church. And I think it is because they thrive on keeping you isolated. It's okay if you're asking questions, but don't talk to anybody about it. Don't let anybody know what's going on. If you're on your own little island and you feel like nobody else around you is questioning what's going on, then you're a lot less likely to step forward and sort of follow those questions to wherever they lead.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really glad that you were able to sort of connect your own natural experience with a whole community of people who get it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad I could share. Your comment reminded me of a quote I heard once, is that the only religions with all the answers are the ones that don't allow questions.
Yeah. Well, that's
anyway,
one of, yeah.
One reason I wanted to call in was I've heard so many dramatic stories of deconversion, and I just kind of feel like there's a lot of people out there like me that had non-dramatic conversions.
Yeah,
and
that's good. It's good to keep that in mind
they
too.
need to know there's people like me
Yeah.
out there too.
Yeah, well, that's
sure.
great. Absolutely. Well,
Thanks so much.
Thanks for calling in and reminding us that. That's awesome.
Well, thank you very much for taking the call.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Okay, good night.
Yeah, there are as many stories as there are people, and we just have to remember that. I want to get to a question I saw in the chat and get your feedback on this. Cairo, my man.
Miss you.
Cairo, thank you for your support, brother. Would love a little more clarity on the difference between deconstruction and deconversion. Many thanks. Love and appreciate each of you. Continue in greatness. Salute. What would you say about that, Eve? Because you touched on that earlier too. Those two terms.
Deconstruction is a philosophical term if we're really gonna go there with it. But what it's taken on, like colloquially, when we talk about deconstruction, we're talking about examining your beliefs and figuring out what you believe and why. And that's why we have progressive Christians in the deconstruction zone. We have every type of person. We have atheists, we have agnostic, people that only claim to be agnostic. You know, it's a spectrum. Absolutely. Deconstructing is simply examining your beliefs. And deconversion is leaving a religion. It's deconverting. It's, you know, we've converted to a religion. We're not born religious. So it's the leaving of that specific religion. And people can deconvert and not even be atheists. They can deconvert and become Buddhist or, you know, convert to Judaism or whatever it may be. But yeah, they are different things. I know a lot of people that have deconverted and become atheists that have never deconstructed their beliefs ever. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of people that are extremely devout Christians that have deconstructed their beliefs, so much so that I have zero problem with 99% of what they value in life. So that's my take.
What would you add to that, Genevieve? I think that's a pretty good summary, but your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think you did sum that up perfectly. I do think that, you know, when we think of the word deconstruction, we can't assume that it sort of describes like one specific type of individual. Yeah, it's a journey, but it's like, you know, it is like when you're tearing down your house piece by piece.
Yeah.
You know, whatever foundation is going to be left is going to be different for every person, and what you put back on there, if you put anything or if you just, you know, sell the plot, it's going to be totally different. And I do know, just like you, quite a few very progressive Christians who are still, you know, God believers, who still, you know, revere the Bible in some way, but they deconstructed whatever form of Christianity and whatever belief system they did have prior to that. So they're very closely related. I would just say that deconversion is sort of just a subset of that group, while also sometimes being separate. Because you're absolutely right. There are a lot of people who deconvert, but they don't deconstruct, and then you still have a lot of problematic beliefs that you should probably just like pick into.
Yeah, that's a good summary of things. I think we've got calls. We're going to get to you, callers. Hang in there. I do want to grab this chat room question from Dana Jones Nolan. I want to know how I can deal with my mother-in-law who has been brainwashed by the Mormon Church for the last 40 years. Thoughts? I guess
boundaries.
Yeah, I always talk about. I guess that really, it's hard to know the depth of that question without, you know, other details of the relationship. A lot of that has to my view, a lot of it has to do with the amount of interaction you have. Is this a daily relationship? Is this someone you live near that you interact with regularly? At meals, are they inserting their ideas into your life? If she's been brainwashed by the Mormon Church, is she trying to convert you? Is she putting pressure on you? Or is just something that she holds and clings to, and it annoys you, and you know it's stupid, and you wish she wouldn't. There's a
Right.
lot of different layers there to that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what type of relationship you want to have.
Yeah.
Because, I have religious family members and in-laws who I'm pretty sure do not know that I do any of this. And that's okay. They've been
Right.
believers for decades. Some of their beliefs might be totally extreme in my views, but we're just not going to talk about it. They're set in their ways. They're not pushy, and I'm fine talking about the weather and food
Yeah.
and what have
Yeah.
you. But if you wanted that deep relationship where you feel like you could literally say whatever is on your mind, then that's another situation where you would have to kind of delve into that. Kind of
Yeah.
just depends on if it's worth it.
I think too, if you said she's been your mother-in-law of 40 years, so if this is somebody that's already getting older in age and they're nearing the end of their life, this has been her coping mechanism for what I assume is a very, very long time. And that is really hard to deprogram from. And if this is what's gotten her to where she is now and she's okay with that, I think sometimes it's best to not, poke at stuff like that and let people have what's gotten them through, because if they're at a certain point where they're not going to be able to unlearn all that they've been programmed to believe, it can make the relationship worse, and it can make life worse. If she doesn't have time to deprogram from all of that, or the desire to, then sometimes it's better to just smile and nod, is what I say. Just let them have what they have, and know that that's not somebody you can ever be that close with.
And to your point about boundaries, though, if she
Right.
is inserting her ideas into your life and trying to
Set those boundaries.
convert you or trying to persuade you in any way, and that's it's making life difficult, then you you draw boundaries and you say that's not okay.
Yeah.
You believe that if you want. I don't, and I'm not trying to convert you to my secular ideology, and I appreciate it if you would do that with me. So thank you very much for not saying anything about that again.
Yeah.
And I do think that those boundaries are that much easier to set when it's a conversation that you have with your partner. Since this is your mother-in-law, this is your partner's mother. And if you two or three or however many, I don't know if you're polyamorous, but if you guys aren't a team and aren't united, it can become that much more challenging. If you're trying to set boundaries, but your partner doesn't agree and then might get in the middle, it gets really messy. So just really, really think through what you want this relationship to be, how you want to live your life, and if those boundaries are something that you can set together as a family.
Yeah.
All right, we got calls to get to. Genevieve, you have brought them in tonight. Let's
Thank
talk
you guys for showing up. I have some friends online.
Chad, he, him in Alabama.
Chad, I love you, Chad.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
Hey,
Good to have you. Thanks for calling.
Oh, good to be here.
What's on your mind? You were a missionary kid turned atheist.
Absolutely. I grew up in the Independent Fundamental Baptist Church here in the backwoods of Alabama. And when I was about 12 years old, my dad decided to take the good word to the totally not Christian countries of the Netherlands and Belgium, right?
Oh,
so we spent about 7 years over there, and we did very unsuccessfully try to start very Southern Baptist or Independent Baptist, I should say, style churches in Europe, and it went about as well as you'd expect.
Yeah. I would
not well.
I would think that did not go well.
Yeah. So
my
dad was quite a firebrand. He really spoke out about what he believed in. He was actually kicked out of a Southern Baptist seminary for speaking out against the faculty there. But when I came back to the States after spending several years over in Europe, I quickly, of course, tried to find my own way in the Independent Fundamental Baptist Church as an adult. I ended up going to a church where the pastor, it's a long story, but he was very abusive to his family, and the church helped cover that up. And when I talked to my dad about that, he said this man who had been kicked out of a Southern Baptist seminary for going against the faculty, he told me after I told him about the pastor, he said, well, it's wrong, but we don't need to talk about it.
Yeah. Hush,
and
hush.
I said, what? Yeah, he said,
Just as Jesus
yeah, we need
would
to
say.
keep it quiet. Yes. Yeah, it might hurt the cause of Christ if we speak about
That's
what
their
he did.
mindset. That's
Yeah.
their
And-
mindset. Always defend the brand.
Exactly. And I realized very quickly, especially when it kept happening to people that I was told growing up that I should look up to and respect, because I was also raised in the Bill Gothard homeschooling cult as well. And,
Oh, wow.
he ended up being exposed for several things.
Yeah.
So things like that just kept happening. And I eventually said, I didn't sign up for this. I need out. And I did exactly as you said. I loved how you put it, Dave, about about taking down your house all the way down to the foundations and trying to see what you can build out of it. And that was what I purposed to do. I said, fundamentalism was wrong. I'm going to rebuild my faith, basically, just from the premise that, Jesus is Lord and God is true. I mean, nothing can go wrong with that idea.
Yeah.
And it took me about maybe a year of going off of that premise where I said, I'm going to have to go deeper, aren't I? And eventually, through resources like these call-in shows, Atheist Experience, and of course you had No Illusions on earlier, the folks at Scathing Atheist, and several podcasts I started listening to. I allowed myself to start to consider that maybe the very core of what I believe was wrong, and just allowing that information to just kind of weighing the evidence, weighing it against what I was taught, and weighing against especially the secrets that I was told to hold while I was in fundamentalism, and just seeing just how much more freeing it was to actually, question things and to think critically. That was what eventually led me into atheism, and I personally have just
how long ago was
so much more and felt more.
Give us some context. How long ago was that, and about what age were you when this process started happening with you?
Certainly. It was, I would say that the core of it started around the mid to late 2000s. So I was about 20 years old when I first started seeing the corruption. And I left completely when I was about, I want to say 26. So around 2011, 2012-ish. That was when I left fundamentalism. And roughly about 2014, 2015 was when I deconverted from Christianity entirely and went into atheism.
So that was a long process. You're letting go of more and more things, is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
It's
certainly. I mean, when you spend your entire life on Earth. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, please, after you.
Oh, okay. When you spent your entire life from birth being taught that your safety and your and everything that you trust your parents to provide for you comes from the source of these predetermined truths, as they call them, that God is real, Jesus is real, and you best follow him if you know what's good for you. I mean, I would say when I was 6 years old, and I was and my entire worldview was shaped by that. So, like you said, it was not an overnight thing. It just had to be. I had to gradually see the truth for myself. And when as I went into my adult years and I developed my long delayed critical thinking skills through just accepting reality.
Not as long as mine were delayed.
Well,
no,
and I've started on your book, by the way.
Oh, good.
It's
Thank
amazing.
you.
Good.
It's been a real encouragement to me so far.
Well, I'm impressed when I really am always impressed when I hear of 20-somethings and who were indoctrinated from birth, kind of waking up early in life and realizing, wait, just a minute, something's wrong here in the kitchen. I just really applaud that, because it can be hard. And I don't know what are things like with this a dad who decided, he had to be a firebrand to take IFB ideology to to Europe. I mean, seriously. But how is he? I mean, how is that relationship, if you don't mind sharing that part? What does he know of your deconversion?
Well, unfortunately, he did. He died in 2020.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
He was on his 4th round with cancer. Well, yes, he had fought cancer for several years, and toward the end, I attempted to reach out a few times to just say, hey, even though we don't believe the same way anymore, I initially approached him as a deconverting fundamentalist, and then later on as an atheist. I said, look, this is where my journey has taken me, but I would like to just, regardless of anything else, I just want to be father and son as adults and just, interact as that. And unfortunately, through a lot of complicated family issues, that just never happened. And I'm sorry to say the story doesn't have a happy ending. He died, and we never really reconciled on that point. But I will say the people that I've met, outside of the very small world that I grew up in, even though we went half a world away, we still maintain that little bubble that we dare not venture out of. And meeting other people and accepting people for who they are, and even reconnecting with some of the people who grew up the same way I did, who have since deconstructed and deconverted. It's just been such a wonderful experience. And of course, listening and, finding folks like, you and Genevieve, and of course, Eve is, a good friend of mine. Y'all have just been, the people I've met, and the openness as to which I've been accepted by so many people outside of religion has just been more than made up for it. Something about family will never be replaced, but the people that I've met have really helped me process through that.
That's important. And I know that Eve has seen that. I've seen that. We've had family disconnections. It's tough when those lives end, like your dad's, and you don't get to feel that there was a resolution to things, and that's tough. And I'm really sorry to hear that. I've heard that a lot. I've heard of parents on their deathbed, come in here, son. I want to talk to you one more time. You've got to believe. You can't let me go until I know you're okay. It's just horrible, the pressure and the anxiety that accompanies that. And that it's just tough. It's just tough. And I'm sorry you had to deal with that. But you do realize there are people out there like Eve and Genevieve and myself who are, in a sense, like family. I've said it many times. I'll continue to say it. We don't get to choose what family we're born into. It's not a choice we've made. And we can't help it. We do the best we can with it, but it's not always what we want it to be or what we're told it should be. So all we can do is focus on the relationships that we can make around us, and the people that we want in our lives that make our lives more full. And that's what it sounds like you've done, Chad. So I want to applaud you for that and your friendship with Eve.
You're the best, Chad. I'm proud of you, and I'm honored to call you friend.
Thanks, Eve. And thank you all so much for everything that you continue to do for those who are deconstructing, deconverting, or just need support in whatever way. Y'all are the best, and I appreciate y'all.
Well, thank you, man.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling in, Chad.
All right. I'll take care.
All right, let's get to Joe. I think I know who this is. Joe I missed the right button. Where'd he go? Joe, he, him in Michigan. Hey, Joe.
Hey, how's it going, Dave?
Pellerito. Hey, Brady.
You got it.
I'm going to see you at the beach in February. I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, me too. Me too. Hey, Dave, Genevieve, Eve, it seems like there's this joy in your heart. I'm wondering where it comes from, I'm only commenting on that because I saw somebody comment, why is it that people who have deconstructed seem so unhappy? And I just disagree with that.
Are they watching this show?
It's funny how
Right.
that's what it says in the comments. I'm like fighting
Jesus.
in the shade. I don't know about you, man. All right.
Wow.
Anyway,
I didn't see that one.
Yeah, I do
But
think that pretty much everybody, in the end they say, "Oh, but I'm so much happier. I'm so much
Yeah.
more free." It's hard to go through, but yeah, way better on the other side. The grass is often greener.
I just find it, fear is an interesting thing, isn't it?
Yes, it
How
is.
people
Yeah.
react from fear.
Yeah.
And
Well,
there's so many chapters in my deconstruction, but I'm not going to share all of that. I'm just going to focus on what I told your call screener, and that
yeah,
was
I
that.
want to hear that.
You know,
That's interesting.
so 17 years ago almost, I went through an adoption through what's called Bethany Christian Services.
Heard of it.
Adopted
Yep.
my son, right? And nothing like something called Christian Services that makes you go, okay, I got to get serious now, right?
Right.
So from that kind of forced my hand, I think, and that I think it was going through that that really forced the issue for me. Just really reading more and defining what am I really a Christian?
Oh, so it made you more of a serious Christian, is what you say. It kind of caused you to really get serious about following God because you felt like you had to be a good Christian parent, kind of thing. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm signing off saying, yeah, I'm a Christian, and so I'd like to adopt my son now,
Right.
I think I could get away with not really speaking before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I did not grow up in a Christian household, so that's one. In fact, in my family, I'd say I'm probably the most interested in spirituality. But when you're adopting from birth parents, that it's important to them, that it's a religious household.
Yeah.
Right. I just thought, okay, I've got to take this seriously now. And I'll say I gave it a good try. Let's put it that way.
I'm wondering though, if you deconvert, do you have to give the child back? I don't know how does that work? Son, I'm sorry. We're gonna have to talk, son. There've been some changes. But yeah.
I at the same time, it's been freeing in the last couple of years. And so what is it that really made me make that choice? There's a song by Dave Bazan called Curse Your Branches. And it's the lyrics in there that really, I listened to it maybe almost 10 years ago now. But it was, all the fallen leaves should curse their branches for not letting them decide where they should fall. And I don't know, there was something that really grabbed me on that.
I want to hear that.
I remember this. Yeah, there was this grief almost of, holy crap, I don't think I'm buying this, and then Dave, it was, I heard you on it was called Dogma Debate back then.
Yeah.
Through David C. Smalley's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And a series of other shows. Hey, we can credit the internet, can't we?
Totally.
It's shows like yours, guys.
It really is. It's a
making
huge
people
influence.
feel not alone.
Huge influence. Yeah. It's a weird, I sometimes I think about, and I never know if any of my family watches any of my stuff. I get hints sometimes that they do. But
I always wonder too.
Yeah, I know you do, Eve. But you and I, Eve, are so outspoken about our I mean, we're out there, man. And we don't hold anything back. And yet all of our family is conservative evangelical. So I sometimes I wonder when we're doing a show and I'm saying something, I get this thought, okay, what's mom going to think? Or what's my brother going to say?
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, you're celebrating deconversion. You're celebrating deconstruction. You're trying to talk people out of their firmly held beliefs. That is so wrong. And well, first of all, we're not. No, we're not. We're giving space for people to share their stories about how they came to the same kind of changes that we came to.
Yep.
But secondly, I'm not. I don't know what to think when I hear like what you said, Joe, about seeing me on a show, or I've had people message me and say some things you said really helped me process my deconversion. You know, when they say blatantly, "I'm an atheist because of you," I'm going, "Oh, that was pointed." I don't know that I want to take credit for that, but I don't feel bad about it.
You don't want to convert anybody?
No, that's my point. That's exactly right, Joe. I'm not trying to make atheists. I'm not trying to create atheists. My goal is to, if what I say and do can cause people to think more clearly and to be more critically minded, to be more, just to have critical thinking, just to think through what you're doing and why you're doing it, what you're believing and why you're believing it. That's my whole goal. And to create space for other people who are going through what I've been through. That's it. If someone comes to the conclusion they no longer believe because of something I've said, then that's just how it is. That's what happens. It's nothing I take responsibility for or credit for. I'm not trying to get brownie points in heaven like I used to be as a Christian. You know, jewels to your crown or whatever kind of bullshit that was supposed to be. Notches on your heavenly holster. I don't know.
A new room added to your mansion.
You get a bigger mansion. That's right. Yeah.
You know, I do think, Dave, that when people tell you that, you know, you are the reason they're a non-believer, I feel like, you know, part of me wants to say like, awesome, like Dave 1, God 0, but but I think what it probably is, it's probably a lot similar to some of the stories that we heard tonight, like from Ironclad Alibi, who said, you know, these are the ideas that I already had inside me, but then like you were in front of my face and you put them out there in a way that you could finally like recognize what was
and you gave me a language to articulate what I was already thinking.
Exactly.
That's what I hear a lot too. You helped me put things in a category I had no category for. Yeah.
That's good.
That's good to hear, Joe.
Well, just to sum it up, I guess there's many points that it's also clear now, right? We look back and we're like, oh my gosh, okay, now I can see all the steps along the way.
Right.
But I think this is about not feeling alone and realizing, and of course, being more brave and saying, hey, am I alone? Thinking these questions, and you find out very quickly you're not. No, you're not the only one. In fact, there's people right next to you a lot of times.
That's what's so important to know. And there's probably no greater joy I find these days than the connections that, and I know Genevieve and Eve, you guys have had this experience too. People that you connect with on the internet, and you end up like the three of us have done, and we've met in person and become incredibly dear friends. I can't express to you how much I love both of you. You're like daughters to me, and I just have such affection for both of you. And no crying. But it's true. It's so true. And when I connect with people online and I find out, okay, so-and-so lives in this small town in Texas. And then I find out, for instance, I'm not picking anybody out, or Kentucky or some, isolated, for instance. And I find out, oh, wait, I just met this other person who lives just in the same town or 30 minutes away. And I'll put them together and they'll text me and say, we're meeting and having coffee and I've just found a new best friend.
You're so good at that.
I cannot tell you how much joy that gives me. It just, I don't know. I just don't think, because we need those connections. And like you said, Joe, we need to know we're not alone.
Yep.
And when you live in a small town and you're the only atheist around and you don't know any others and you don't know who to connect with and you're in hiding and you don't have family relationships or whatever, and you meet someone down the street who shares the same worldview and you guys can be yourselves together. That's the whole point.
Absolutely.
I just love it so much.
That is the point. Yeah. And to I'll just finish right here. Fight in the shade. I was not mocking you. It was any pain that comes with feeling like it's really just coming from not feeling like people agree with you or that you're by yourself.
Yeah,
that's
totally.
the pain I'm referring to.
No, it's
That's
true.
FEAR. That's the acronym, false evidence appearing real. I must be the only one, right?
Yeah.
So just thanks for what you guys do. Eve,
You
Genevieve, Dave, thanks for
Thank you.
creating the platform.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for calling. Good. We'll look forward to seeing you in a few months.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, buddy.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye. He's coming to Beach Week. Yay!
Yay.
So many new people this year too. It's going to be so cool.
That's exciting.
Well, all right, we're running a little late. Can you guys stay a few more minutes?
I'm
Y'all
good.
good, both of you? Okay. I want to make sure we get this last call, and then that will be. We've gotten all the calls. Wow, that's awesome. Sam, he, him in North Carolina.
Hi, Sam.
Hi.
Hey, Sam. Thanks for calling. It says here you're a former deacon in a fundamentalist Baptist church. Tell us about
That
that.
is completely true. I will. So I was a Christian for about 30 years, and I started off as an extremely homeschooled kid.
Yeah.
I
Me too.
got taught that evolution was false, a bunch of stuff that I won't go into. Ended up doing a semester at Pensacola Christian College.
Ooh.
Wow.
And yeah, okay, you've heard of that. Okay.
Oh yeah, that's mega conservative. Yeah. That's why I went, ooh,
Oh
that's
my
like
gosh,
the
dude.
yeah. Right up there with Bob Jones University, right? Yeah.
You know, funny story. I went into that college knowing nothing about it, and I got
Oh,
over
wow.
there, and I'll never forget. Day one, I held out my hand to shake the hand of my roommate's friend, who was a girl, and everybody looked at me really strange,
Yep.
and told me, "No, we don't do that here. You can't touch. Men and women can't touch one another."
Oh my goodness.
You weren't even trying to hug her and feel her bosom. You just wanted
No,
to
I tried to
touch
shake
her
her hand.
Oh my God.
Not the hand.
Not the hand, the
but,
bare hand.
I moved on to a secular university for other reasons, and I became the tech team leader at my local church. So I ran a soundboard for years and years. And Eve, I've loved hearing your content because you talk about what it was like to be like a worship team lead. And I'm like, you know, I'm just really relating because I was kind of on the other end of that.
And if you were working sound, you
know,
witnessed all of it.
I did. I was part of like the practice sessions and like, you know, it's like just everything. And in retrospect, I'm like, it's so manipulative. And like,
Oh
I
my
should have
God.
known. But
Yes. It's
but
the
moving
show.
on, I became a deacon after that, and like at that point, I started to realize that in my church were all of these conspiracy theories and pseudoscience, and it started to make me really uncomfortable. And I thought that I turned to the other leadership of the church and I said, you know, hey, look at this stuff. What do you guys think? What should we be doing about it? And only to find out that a lot of the leadership believed in the same things. And, you know, just to give some examples, you know, holistic medicine, homeopathy, those were big. Essential oils was like more than half the congregation was like using essential oils for something or other.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
remember. Yeah, there was a lot there. I won't get into it, but I started to get really nervous about my beliefs at that point. And at that point, I kind of went to my pastors and I asked them, you know, hey, what's going on with all of this stuff? How do I know if we believe that these things are real and we claim to be, you know, to know the ultimate truth in the universe? Like, how can we know that and also think these other fake things are real? And at that point, my pastor, he recommended a few things, but one of them was Lee Strobel's The Case for Faith.
Oh, God.
And I used to have a lot of respect for this pastor's education. I thought he had a master's of divinity. He's had way more schooling than I have with my lowly bachelor's degree. And then I read the book. And some of the claims made in there, I got to chapter 2 before I was just thoroughly disgusted and angry. And I think I had like a really sudden deconversion and in chapter 2.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I love that The Case for Faith deconverted you. I just love that so much.
It absolutely did. There is no question.
That is so cool.
But
well,
yeah, no, it's awful. I knew something about logical fallacies and critical thinking, and I knew about science, and I knew the things he was saying were just complete
That book is
misrepresentation.
horrible.
So not only, sorry, what was that?
Oh, it's just that book was horrible. Yeah, it was full of all of that.
Oh, you read it? Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I read it when I was 16. My youth leader recommended it, and I remember thinking, "Is this the best we have?" Because this is making me have questions.
Yeah, it is. It's the best you had. That's right. That's he's like the
Yeah,
poster child for apologetics.
Yep.
What?
That was what I asked myself, because I'd heard so much about Lee Strobel. My parents had told me about him. My previous church had told me about him. My pastors had told me about him. And I thought, I'd always been told that we had really smart guys on our side. And he was one of the guys.
That's funny.
And here he was, just like proving that he was not a smart guy in any sense.
It must be compelling, though, because they made a movie, so it must be compelling.
Oh, jeez.
I haven't had the stomach to watch that, so.
Oh God, no.
Me either.
I don't know.
No.
Or the God's Not Dead movies.
Yeah. Well, those are
same.
those are fun to hate watch as a group with your friends. They make a good drinking game. But I know
Drinking game.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. But I will say, so Sam, I know we're kind of running over, but it's interesting because you said you were raised like super homeschooled, evolution is a lie.
Yes.
What sort of happened in between that moment and then the moment that you find yourself in this church full of like Lee Strobel fanboys and like pyramid scheme, like oil pushers, that you like learned enough about science to be like, oh, I know enough to know that like this is wrong? Because I guess I'm asking because I know a lot of people who, were raised not believing in evolution tend to put a lot of weight on evolution not being real as like a testament to their faith, and to like the biblical inerrancy. Was that something you ever had to struggle with and sort of deconstruct before you got to this point where you left it all behind?
No, I would say I kind of somehow avoided it. I took science classes, and I guess I kind of had this idea that evolution might not be real or it might be real. It kind of didn't matter. I believed either way. I kind of had this idea in the back of my head that theistic evolution might have happened and God used evolution to make us.
God
And so
uses
maybe,
it, right.
Right. So I guess I kind of rationalized that away. But I went through a bachelor's degree and I got through science class, and I had a decent grasp of some of these things. And I loved reading about cosmology and astronomy and some of the things that we're discovering with new space telescopes and everything. It just fascinates me. And so when they delved into those topics in his book and he starts completely misrepresenting the science,
right?
Not like, arguing that the science, is telling us something then different. No, he's misrepresenting it. It's just like fraudulent, it's intellectually dishonest.
It is, and it makes you angry because you really can't respond to it because they won't listen.
Right.
They're in such an echo chamber, and they're all those books and movies are basically preaching to the choir. They want to slap each other on the back and tell each other how great you made that argument, and they don't realize how they're not reaching anyone with that. They just aren't. It's not compelling. It's turning people away, but they won't listen to you tell them that. They won't. Well, I'm glad you got out.
Yes, I also, to finish answering the question, I did learn some critical thinking because I came into contact with some earlier pseudoscience and quack medicine from just like people growing up. And I'm like, that doesn't sound right. So I kind of learned how to Google and figure out what was real from what wasn't. And I just had never brought those skills to bear on my faith. It was just two separate things for me.
Mm. Well,
and then when I did, it was kind of over.
Yep.
But it was a happy story. Like I got out, my wife got out with me. I had been having a lot of trouble because I'd been taking some bad advice regarding mental health and getting help for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd seen a really, really terrible Christian counselor for
Oof.
a while, and finally got the idea that maybe I should go to somebody who's actually accredited and has qualifications.
That term should not
actually-
exist. Christian counselor should not exist as
Yeah.
a term.
No.
Mhm.
It shouldn't.
It's an
It shouldn't. And,
oxymoron.
like anytime things got difficult, it was just, have you prayed about it? And I'm like,
Mhm.
yes, a million times, yes.
Right.
But they didn't have an answer past that. That was it.
Pray
Yeah.
again.
All right,
And-
I'm
And if you're standing for a therapist as somebody who is going to tell you that you are inherently broken and evil, that's not a very good
Not
Not a
therapist.
good. It's not a good place to start from.
no,
No, good.
No.
hell no.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for
Anyways,
calling. You
I
you
just
say
also
you're
want
in.
to say
Go ahead.
I'm in Western North Carolina.
Well, okay.
Dave, we talked a little bit on Facebook. I won a mug a while back.
Oh
but,
yeah. I know where you.
I'm still looking for community. Like it's been a few years, but it's hard to find people around here. So if you know
Yeah.
anybody in Western North Carolina,
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. Send me a message. I have an idea. Send me a message, and I'll maybe
okay,
give you some.
I'll do that.
It may not
I'll
be.
do that. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah. You bet, man.
I just want to say I appreciate all you guys' work. Eve, you're great. I've loved your
Thank you.
content, and Dave and Genevieve both. You guys are awesome. Keep doing what you're doing.
All right,
Thanks so
man.
much.
Thanks, Sam. Good to hear from you, buddy. Bye-bye. Okay. And we missed a comment, a super chat. Sheila Hoover. Hey, everyone. Sheila's such a dear friend. Thank you, Sheila, for that. Such an inspiration to the young, up-and-coming free thinkers. My daughter, Rachel, is always sharing your content. Thanks for speaking
Aw.
out. Yeah.
Thank you, Sheila. Thanks so
Sheila
much.
has told me that before. You guys will
Tell
meet
Rachel
Sheila.
hi.
Sheila is and here's a nice little thing that I'm going to spill the beans. Sheila's coming to beach also, and
Look at this.
I think her daughter is going to share part of that time with her. So you guys may get to meet and hang out
Yay.
together.
Good.
So
That's awesome.
once again, these connections,
Look at
just
you.
love them. And so here we go. Thank you for that, Sheila, and I love you, babe. So,
I also don't want to miss our Travis's super chat. That
oh
follows
yeah,
that. It's
Oh,
very
another one.
Yes.
pull that up again.
Thank
Oh
you
my
so
God.
much, Chad. He says $5 super chat at PCC. They call handshaking metacarpal intercourse.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, that's
That's
classic.
amazing.
Thank you.
Well, we have kept you guys longer. We just couldn't stop this conversation. It was so
See?
great. Oh
It's
my
such
God.
a good time.
Happens
And
to the best of us, Dave.
all the calls. Just yeah. What I just thank you, Eve, for being here with us tonight. We didn't get to as
Thank
much
you
of
guys
your
for
story.
having me. No, this
We'll do
was
it.
wonderful.
Yeah, I wanted it to be about calls as much as we could
Yeah,
tonight, and
That was
people's
perfect.
deconstruction stories, because everyone has got a story, and it's important to hear those stories, and it's
I agree.
important for people to be heard. And we just had some great calls tonight. Thank you for everyone who called, everyone in the chat room, all the super chats, all the support. If you're new to the channel, we appreciate it if you subscribe and like and share it. All those things. Follow Eve. Where can people find what you're doing?
I'm primarily on TikTok, although I've been slacking the last couple of weeks, but you can go binge. I have hundreds of videos up there. But I'm also on Instagram and Twitter, and it's Eve_was-framed. Yeah,
Eve_was-framed. Great content. And I love how you interact with your people. You do
Thanks.
care. I mean, you don't just put shit out and move on. You when people send you messages, I mean, I've watched you literally spend hours.
I try. I'm still so behind. There's probably people
until
that are like,
I
no,
say,
she hasn't.
Eve, put the phone away and take a break.
Yep.
Put the phone away, take a break. Come on, let's go look at the sunset. Let's come
Yep.
on.
Dave's like, come back to real life. But
yeah. No, I shouldn't say it that way, because it is real life. And for those people, you are a life source. And I see that, and I've seen that, and I appreciate that about you, how much you care. You've got such a huge heart. And so thank you for doing that, and the people
I'm just
that you're
trying to be like you.
Yeah, right. Everybody be like, what would Dave do? That's a good slogan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So thanks everybody for staying with us long. If you did, if you didn't, that's cool. Watch whatever you want, if you want, whatever. But we love you guys. Thanks for being here. That's our show for
Thanks,
tonight.
everybody.
Bye.